this small, unassuming street, one of Hanoi's most famous dishes was born. So famous that the street was eventually named after it. This is Chaka Street.
Chaka means the dish made out of fish, and it has to be a kind of grill or a crispy pan fry.
Our guide on all things Chaka, chef and restaurateur Weng Mi Jang Hoon, also known as Chef Tin, who grew up nearby.
When I walked down the Chaka Street, it brings me back to where I was as a child. I went to the school nearby, and my grandparents were just 5 minutes from that street.
The history of this marinated fish dish dates back over 130 years. Chef Tin says it all started when a local family began serving their specialty to army troops.
There used to be a family living here, and when there's some troops coming to Hanoi, the family used to make them one dish because they make it so good that everyone tells them, then you should make a restaurant.
And open a restaurant they did, at the very location where hungry soldiers were once fed.
Here we are, we are arriving to Chaka Street. That's this house. Make the name for this street. Let's go inside.
The restaurant is called Chaka Lavon. It has become an institution in Hanoi. Locals and tourists often line up to try the only thing on the menu.
Here there's only one dish. So when you come in, you sit down, then you just order, give me one portion or two portions.
Chaka is served as a do-it-yourself assembly line of fresh herbs, including dill and spring onions, rice noodles, chilies, shrimp paste sauce, and of course, grilled marinated fish served sizzling on a hot pan.
People in Hanoi take food very seriously. Whatever on the table for them is important. It's a great moment. That brings people together, the family, everyone is gathering around the food.
But it's not just on Chaka Street that you can find this now iconic Hanoi dish. Chefs all over Vietnam and the world have their own interpretations, Chef Tin included.
This is the Vietnamese saffron. I'm going to powder. Here's the fish. And then I'm going to put a bit of fermented rice, a little bit of spring onion, lemongrass, and a bit of garlic. You see, the smell of fermented rice make all the marination come out more. Perfect. There you go. This is my version of Chaka.
And what better way to wash down a delicious Chaka than an ice-cold beer? The sun has gone down on Hanoi and Ta Hien Street has come to life.
If you really want to get up close and personal with the culture of a new city, in particular, the culture of the local people, you need to stroll the sidewalks, sit on a stool, and have a nice cold beer. And that's what I love about Ta Hien Street.
Meet Brett McDougal and Tan Vu, beer tour guides in Hanoi.
We better go over there and have a few local beer.
The two first bonded over a brew in 2005, only to find out that their fathers both fought on opposing sides of the Vietnam War.
So here was two boys, both born in 1974, really growing up in the 1980s, and I suppose you could say ideologically very opposed. But the first time we sat down over a cold beer and spoke with one another, we realised that our familial or our family values were very, very, very similar. And from that day on, we've become the very best of friends.
Now, joined together as friends and business partners, Brett and Tan run Hanoi beer tours.
That sauce over there is a Hang Pho beer. It's a beer and cooler. That was the first shop to serving Hanoi beer. Hurry.
Teaching others the history of the city and Ta Hien Street through the stories of beer. A story that began in the late 1800s when the French opened up the city's first brewery.
The French brought the beer brewing culture to Vietnam. Before that, it was probably rice wine.
Yeah, before that, moonshine and rice wine and medicine brush white.
It was around 1890 the Hanoi beer brewing factory was first set up. So really from that time on, the beer drinking culture really evolved rapidly. And it evolved through the workers after a hard day's work, wanting to have a nice cold beer to cool the body. And it was also to the curiosity. People wanted to see what Westerners were drinking.
But back then, beer was expensive, not for everyone. That was until the late 1950s, when finally a beer for the people was born.
Ta Hien Street really is famous for what Vietnamese would call bia hoi or fresh beer. Some Vietnamese will actually say it's instant beer, like the instant noodles. It's made quickly and it's sold quickly. The alcohol content traditionally was quite low, and that was because people wanted to consume it rapidly, and the cost of the beer was quite low.
As beer hoi grew in popularity, so did Ta Hien Street. Plastic stools and tables quickly lined the street. Cold beer was consumed as fast as it could be poured. You can still find the inexpensive brew around Hanoi, but on Ta Hien, you need to know where to look.
There is one remaining place, and you have to be in the know. So when you come into this place, 25 cents a glass. Cold, refreshing. Beer hoi used to be for the workers. The workers would come into the street after a long day of work, working really hard. They'd have a glass of beer hoi to cool the body down. For the local shop owners, it doesn't create enough money to sustain the business. So they'd rather sell the bottled beer, they'd rather focus on the food. But if you still want it, this is where you come to get it.
And as this beer street has evolved, so has Hanoi's beer culture.
This is actually the greatest example of the evolution of beer in Vietnam. Ta Hien Street started with a bia hoi, moved to a lot of the mass-produced bottled beers, which people still love, but now you actually have the craft beer scene, which is exploding.
We use the Vietnamese ingredient to produce phở beer. Want to try?
Let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
Craft concoctions on a lively street, exploding with the flavors of Vietnam.
And
Cheers.
Amanpour. 4 new voices join the team, expanded to a full hour to give more depth, and it's all at a new time. Amanpour, Tuesday to Saturday on CNN.
If you look at me, then you would say I belong to the old guard, and that is a fact. Look at the new cabinet which I have. How many people are new in that cabinet? You can see the direction in which we are going. And I said this even before the conclusion of the elections, that I'm going to bring in people with the expertise in various areas, the women and the youth, and I've done so. I can assure you that under my administration, the issue of color has no place. It's the issue of expertise which we want. We would want to grow our economy. We want to modernize our economy. We will not focus on the past. Our focus is to make Zimbabwe a better place, is to make Zimbabwe acceptable again into the international community.
Hanoi, Vietnam's capital city, a bustling metropolis of about 7.5 million people. But even within the scurry of city life, you can find a piece of tranquility beneath the canopy of trees that line Hoang Hoa Tam Street. A street named after a fierce defender of the country and a hero to its people.
When you step into this street, you feel very different feelings, very peaceful, very fresh. And in summer, the weather in Hanoi could be really, really hot. But as you step into Hoang Hoa Tam Street, you already feel very cool.
This is Van An Tran Thi, a Hanoi local who grew up exploring this street with her friends.
As I grew up here, I don't think that there's much change in this street. So 20 years ago, there's still trees because they have been there for hundreds of years.
The street is known by many as Plant Street. You can see why.
So here we are at one of the plant shop in Hong Hoa Tham Street. This is my favorite destination. I come here occasionally to buy the household plants for my apartment and my office. Most of my days spent in my office, so it's very important to turn it into a very enjoyable place. So it will have to purify the air, reduce stress, and make my workday better.
Cái này là cái cọ cảnh này là 150.000.
So 150 Vietnamese dong, about $7 US.
As one of Hanoi's longest streets, some might say the city's prettiest, Hoang Hoa Tham has been, and still is, a nature lover's paradise.
Hanoi people, they come here for seasonal flowers and trees and other like household animals like bird or fish or cat, dog. Vietnamese people want themselves to be as close to the nature as possible. And by raising and tending and training the birds, they hope that to keep part of the nature with themselves. To raise a bird is not simply to enjoy a bird within the cage, but it involves complicated process. For example, how to choose the good birds, how to take good care of them, how to train them to have a good voice.
But what may be the biggest surprise of this street is hidden down a steep, narrow walkway.
As you walk down this slope, it is very quiet in this area.
Packed into this tiny courtyard, away from the noise of passing motorbikes, a piece of history is for sale.
So when you look into this area, you can see the whole history of Vietnam. For example, this booth is very special. They sell all of the items that from the war in Vietnam.
From war relics, porcelain bowls, and old coins, this antique market has something for everyone, from the curious to the collector.
At weekends, I would like to bring my daughters to this street. I will bring them to the antique market so that I can show them the things from the previous generation, how I grew up. And this is the bowl, this is the plate, this is the radio I used to have during my childhood.
The history of a city can be found in more than just its artifacts. And reminders of Hanoi's previous life as a French colony can also be seen in its architecture.
You can see the French style, like the French architecture on this. Yeah, like a royal one.
Of all the streets in Hanoi, Trang Chien Street is the city's centerpiece.
This street was even meant to be like the Champs-Élysées of Indochina. Yeah. And like nowadays there are a lot of like hotels and like shopping centers and coffee shops over here. But in the past, like this street was a place where like major parades took place.
The layout of the street is very organized, very well organized, very straight compared to the street layout of the old quarter.
Leading us step by step down Trang Tien, Wen Thi Hang, and Pui Tuong Lam, local students who give free tours of Hanoi as part of the program Hanoi Kids, which gives locals an opportunity to hone their English skills.
Trang Tien Street is one part of what is called the French Quarter in Vietnam. The French came to Vietnam and they specifically built that area to be like an Asian Paris.
At the top of the street, which was once called Rue Paul Bert, sits one of the most iconic buildings in the city.
So we are at the Hanoi Opera House, and this was one of the most luxurious and major buildings in Hanoi. It was built in 1901 and it was finished in 1911. And this was also the place where a lot of major historical events took place.
When I go to Hanoi Opera House, I appreciate its beauty as well as its value, the historical value. The beauty is that you can see that it is modeled after the Garnier Opera House in Paris. So it's appreciated in beauty. It's very gorgeous.
Just down the street, another Hanoi institution with a hidden history, the Metropole Hotel.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to Sofitel Legend Metropole Hanoi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Below the hotel's pool sits a unique room.
So we're going down straight here.
a bomb shelter that housed VIPs, including actress Jane Fonda, during the bombings of 1972.
So how long did Jane Fonda stay in here?
She was here for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Because during the time she visited the hotel was the bombing campaign.
Another room at the hotel, this one above ground, also finds its way into the history books.
So here, our suite, Charlie Chaplin suite.
Famed actor and comedian Charlie Chaplin honeymooned here in 1936.
Wow, big bed.
Trung Tien and its surrounding streets have seen a lot over the years. Although much of it has changed over time, one spot has remained the same since 1958.
This is Trung Tien ice cream, and the flavor is amazing. And this is like an ideal
Dessert, and I think like people with children will really enjoy it here. The ice cream here has a really long history and it's like really popular for Vietnamese people.
So let's try it.
Yes. It's been a really long time since I had an ice cream.
Yeah, I like the vanilla.
But what may be the best part of this street? Something rare for Hanoi. On the weekends, it shuts down to vehicle traffic, allowing pedestrians to enjoy all it has to offer.
So one part of the street will become will be closed to traffic. People will walk around, and there's many activities happening here, like the traditional games, performances, live music, and we'll say near around the lake there will be a night market. In this street, there's many hotels, many banks, many kind of bookstores, coffee shops. It's like the entertaining hub.
An entertainment hub of this ancient capital city, where its history, like the rest of Hanoi's, can be discovered one step at a time.